can drink coffee. I drink too much coffee. Probably shouldn't drink coffee this late in the day. Here we are. And today on the sheet, we have Doug MacLean stopping by. Why do we have Doug MacLean today? Well, if you've seen the Stadium Series jerseys, you'll notice there is a cannon on the front of Columbus's jersey. Looks beautiful. Doug MacLean will tell us the story of the cannon and how it came to be, amongst other things around the NHL, and we will talk about plenty about Columbus with Doug. Also, Jay Rosehill stops by as well. We'll talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs without John Tavares. Fraser Minton called up from the Toronto Marlies of the American Hockey League. And because I got this question off air a couple of seconds ago, how come Rosie never played in the Western Hockey League? You ever wonder that? We're going to ask him that. Right now, he's at the gym. So when he's done with gym, he's going to join us at the bottom of the hour. In the meantime, I want to talk about, and hello to everyone in the chat, Jeremiah, Big Willie, Kim, Bill, everybody there, El Celdo. Ooh, nice. I want to talk about the Cobra Chickens. And with that, we're going to bring in Zach, who played against the Cobra Chickens, who are a legendary team fronted by none other than who, Zach?
Pavel Barber.
Awesome.
I teased it yesterday on the show that I told you I was going to go out and play, and I did last night. It's really cool what they do. I'm sure you're aware of it. I don't know if the chat is. So downtown Toronto, where I live, there are outdoor rinks everywhere. Boards, the Zambonis come out, like everything. And full size. We went out there and played full gear outside in the snow downtown. And I was telling you, Jeff, off air that I've played outdoor rinks my whole life, but I've never played full gear. That was one of the best experiences ever. Yeah,
I used to play full gear. I used to play full gear at Swansea in the west end of Toronto. Outdoors, Swansea. Well, that was one of the arenas that the Toronto Maple Leafs spiffed up one year. They pick one every year and they spiff it up. Anyway, continue. Dumb aside by me.
It was cool. It was snowing. You could see the CN Tower and everything. So it was just a pretty cool scenic thing. And then
snow globe. I felt like Colby Armstrong at the Winter Classic in Buffalo. The snow is falling. I'm Crosby in the shootout.
Yeah, that's basically where I put myself. But it was like 4-on-4 hockey. It was pretty cool. They are really good guys. It was fun. It was like an hour-long skate out there. Yeah. He was wearing the GoPro and everything, so guys on our team were laughing. Like a lot of the guys I played with played college hockey and junior hockey, and it was kind of like no one was out there being like we're gonna like make a point of like not doing something or anything like that. But it was like we're not letting this guy get a highlight.
And did he?
I texted you after. No, I don't think so. No, nothing that was like, oh wow, you know what I mean? Like that was kind of what I was expecting. Jeff, I kid you not, every time I went up against him where it was like 1v1 or he was on the boards or anything, I was so locked in defensively, you couldn't even begin to imagine it. I'm not kidding you.
You don't want to be one of the co-stars of his videos here on the 19th anniversary of the Alex Ovechkin Coyotes goal. We'll always remember Brian Boucher and Paul Mara and that cutaway back. We show this later, and the cutaway back to Wayne Gretzky on the bench like this. Yeah. You don't want to be the co-star of a big moment of Pavel Barber. Do you have any highlights because if he's wearing the GoPro, some of the clips must have popped up. Do you have anything for us yet?
He just posted something on his Instagram story. I'll try to get it into the show here, but
if you can't get it today, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay,
what is it? It's just me skating in front of him and then coming back the other way. So you can see me in it, but that's not really doing anything. I like the little fake stick check at him, and that's pretty much it.
This is where I wish I had someone like Don Braid here, skating instructor. Let's go through Zach's stride here.
We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that.
See what's wrong with this. Look at these short knock knees. Oh no, wait a minute, that's me actually.
Jeff, there's a reason that I'm playing ODR men's.
No.
Anywhere else?
Trust me. Trust me, I feel your pain, bud. I feel your pain. Okay, listen, this is going to be an action-packed show. I mentioned Doug MacLean, mentioned Jay Rosehill, and our man Zach has played against the Cobra Chickens. Again, like I said about Stephen Brunt interviewing Adam Copeland, I'm not jealous at all. I love Barber. He's a great guy. Was that your first time meeting him? Like awesome dude. Super skilled, amazing videos. Check out all of his social media platforms. I just love that there's room in hockey now and a place for all this stuff to go where you can cobble together a career. Like, look what Barber's done. And he does camps and schools. And, like, he goes, like, I remember, like, my kid was at a tournament last year in Buffalo at the outdoor rink by the lake. And there's a big sort of fan fest in there. And the biggest lineup was to meet Pavel Barber. Like, these guys are bigger stars than some of the players in the National Hockey League. These are like the sensation that these kids all follow. Okay, in the meantime, time now, before we get to Doug MacLean and we get to Jay Rosehill, and the topics of the day are as follows. Daily Outlines presented by FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider, and the #1 story today we're going to get into. I don't know how long we're going to spend on it, although it kind of took a life of its own this morning on Morning Cup of Hockey. Connor McDavid and the chicken wing to Marcus Johansson yesterday in that Edmonton, Minnesota Wild game. We'll get into that, and we'll talk about the nature of suspensions, fines, and as we talked about on the show the other day, does every elbowing call have to be an elbow to the head? And if so, in the rule book, we'll get into this in a couple of moments. I just want to make a point about elbowing specifically. So we'll get there with McDavid. No fine, no suspension, no nothing. So that's one of our topics on the horizon today as part of our daily outline here on the sheet. Also, we will talk about Alexander Ovechkin on the anniversary of what I would say is the best individual effort for a goal we've ever seen. Not the biggest goal, the most important goal. I mean, it was a 6-1 blowout when he pulled that one off. I thought it was 6-1 or 5-1 when he pulled that one out against the Arizona Coyotes. And yes, Austin Matthews was in the crowd. He was 8 years old watching that thing. So in the building, there's Ovechkin, there's Gretzky, and there's Austin Matthews. Pretty cool trio of people to be involved on that day 19 years ago. I mentioned Doug MacLean, former general manager and president of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we'll get Doug. Like, I texted Doug today. I'm like, dude, I know you've told me this story before plenty of times, but can you just come on and tell us the Cannon story, how the Cannon came to be a Nationwide Arena with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So we'll have that story coming up here in about 7 or 8 minutes time. He will talk about the Cannons. That is topic number 4. Like, who knows? Maybe won't get to anything else other than the Cannon story, because the Cannon story can be a little bit lengthy, and it's really good too. So stick around for that. Jay Rosehill, bottom of the hour. It is the Toronto Maple Leafs facing off against the New Jersey Devils. So that means Sheldon Keefe is in Toronto for the first time behind the bench with the New Jersey Devils. And we'll talk about John Tavares. He is out at least a week. Fraser Minton called up. I mentioned Sheldon Keefe. We'll talk about him as he makes his return to Toronto. So all of this, and if we can squeeze even more in, we've got about 52 minutes left of the show to try to squeeze all of this in. But let's begin. So let's begin with this. And please weigh in on the chat. And there's already some of our favorites, as I mentioned, in the chat right now. Weigh in on this one. So this is the Connor McDavid elbow to the head of Marcus Johansson yesterday. Now, Johansson left the game. He didn't come back. There's no minor penalty on it. And there's no fine. There's no suspension. There is nothing. And here's the way that I look at it. I'm curious your thoughts on this one as well. Zach, please weigh in on the chat. So here it is. Here's McDavid brushing by. A little bit of a tap on the chin there. The way I look at this one is that should have been a penalty. 2-minute minor. In the rule book, elbowing is a minor penalty. It can rise to a higher level of punishment, but there is a penalty for elbowing. That to me is a missed minor penalty. That's it. There wasn't he wasn't charging at him with his elbow up high. He wasn't. It was more of a reflex, little quick sort of tap than something, deliberate, premeditated. I'm hunting this guy. It was nothing like that. But should it have been a penalty? Yes, a minor penalty, and it was missed. And that's why, as much as like some of the chat on the Morning Cup of Hockey show this morning, I was on the chat pretty much the whole show, and there were a lot of people that were fines or suspensions for Connor McDavid. I just see it, Zach, at most a 2-minute minor. That's it, because that is in the rule book. You do have that penalty. Not every elbow to the head has to be a suspension or a fine or both.
Okay, I'm not going to, when I say this, I'm not talking about something egregious. I'm not talking about going and, suspending this guy for 5 to 10 games. I'm kind of surprised that there's no additional something after this.
Why?
And not even suspension here. Because the way I looked at it was this was a defenseless player, and he saw. I get what you're saying, like it's a reflex as he's going by, but he sticks out his elbow. Like he very clearly sticks out his elbow to get him and hits him in the chin.
Yeah. It's a missed penalty.
But the NHL is trying to get rid of head contact. This is a big thing that they're trying to remove. We've seen here where you're trying to remove or eliminate hits to the head. Is that am I wrong on that?
Okay, but then change the rule book. Make that an automatic ejection. Like there is, like in the rule book, there is a penalty. Like there is a minor penalty for elbowing. And as we've talked about before, you will never see an elbowing penalty when you hit someone in the shoulder or in the chest or in the, I don't know, elbow. You'll only get an elbowing penalty when you hit someone in the head. So I'm with you as long as you're changing the rule book. But as it stands right now, that's a minor penalty. And it was missed.
The other thing I'll throw out here, which it's hard because it's McDavid, and I don't think he's like intending to injure people. And I see producer Victor in the chat disagreeing with me, but which is fine. But here's the other thing for me, and I think you will agree with this. Connor McDavid is so good that he is in control and is well aware that Joe Johansson is there and coming, and
I agree.
Gets him in. But the problem for me, Jeff, is he gets him in the chin. Like it's a defenseless player who's going out that he gets in the chin with an elbow. It's an elbow to the head. Like to me, that screams supplemental discipline. Again, when I'm saying this, because people are going to be mad at me, I get it. I'm not yelling 5-10 game suspension here. I don't even know if it's worthy of a suspension. But like a fine. I could see a fine coming from this. I would argue for a fine because it's a hit to the head against a defenseless player, and I think that he knew what he was doing.
Then change the rule book.
The other thing.
I'm with you. Then change the rule book. But as it stands right now, there is a penalty for elbowing, and it is 2 minutes. If it's egregious, then and to the point about, like, there's a couple of things here. One, they have suspended Connor McDavid before. So this isn't just, we're protecting a star, and it's Connor McDavid. We have to look. I mean, he sat down 2 games for his hit on Nicoletti back in 2019. So this is not a case of, there's protecting the stars, and he can do whatever he wants. Here's the hit. So for this one on Leddy in 2019, he got 2 games for that one. So it's not as if the Department of Player Safety has, changed the rules around Connor McDavid. Like, look at that. Goes at, hits the head, target, all of it. Like, that one is legit 2-game suspension. This one's an elbow to the chin. This one's a little tap. And that's fine. Like, I understand what you're saying. But if you're going to do that, then change the rule book. Make it different. If you're going to do that. And there was on the Morning Cup of Hockey chat this morning, there was a lot of, what if Matt Rempe did that? Would it have been like a 10-game suspension? No, it wouldn't have. Would have been the exact same thing, because that is more of a reflex going by than deliberately skating at the player, targeting the head, and bam, elbow to the chin. He went by him and he hit him with the elbow. He chicken winged him a little pop in the chin. It's a missed minor. Do we suspend on missed minors? Like, the penalty for that is minor. Just like Hartman on Draisaitl. Hartman on Draisaitl was the same thing. That was another missed minor penalty yesterday.
Right. Okay. So your point, though, is more so that based on the rule book as of right now, is that what the rules say point blank would imply that is just a penalty and nothing more.
Correct.
That is okay. What I guess what I'm saying more so then would be, I think that rule. Sorry to our friend Patrick Burke. I think that rule and the Department of Player Safety, I think that's stupid.
They don't write the rule book.
I think that's stupid.
The Department of Player Safety doesn't write the rule book.
They are taking a look at it as more so what my implication is after the fact, and they're determining that by the rules. I am just lumping them into that. It's just, I think that's dumb. I think that is a penalty, and more. I think that's more. It is an elbow to the head of a defenseless player by a guy who knew what he was doing.
So let me ask you then this question. Does every elbow to the head, because as we've talked about, elbowing minors are always to the head. Show me the 2 minutes for elbowing when you catch someone in the chest. So every elbowing penalty is an elbow to the head. If that is true, then does every elbowing penalty raise to the level of suspension for you? Is that where we're at?
Well, then maybe that would
Not for me.
Honestly, that's the thing. So you're right. You're right. And I don't have I can't argue that. I just can't. I don't have anything else to say about that one. With the elbowing, because you threw that out there at me the other day, and I was like, like, what do I say to that? That's right. But like, it's a hit to the head. It's a hit to the chin too. I don't know.
Barely touched him.
I think it should have been more.
All right. Let's bring in our first guest. This is going to be a big show. And listen, we saw the Stadium Series outfits both for Detroit and Columbus. They both look really good. And Columbus features prominently the Cannon. And when you think of the Cannon, there is one person who has the authority to talk about the origins of the Cannon at Nationwide Arena, and he is Doug MacLean, who was general manager and president going back to 1998 to 2007 of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's off the pickleball court, and he's well refreshed, and he's ready to talk about hockey with you. Good afternoon, Doug. How are you, sir?
I'm excited to get an opportunity to go on. Somebody said to me, I'm going about sheets, and I said, that's Jill yelling at me to change the bed sheets. What the hell is the sheet?
Well, there's a couple of things.
Where the hell did it come from?
There's game sheet, score sheet. There's sheet of ice.
And there's also horse sheet.
There's bullshit. We call everyone in our chat the sheetheads. Like, it's a whole theme we're going for here, Doug. You're playing right along with us here.
Anyway, tell the young guy that was just on to give up on players. Yeah, tell Zach to give up on worrying about that stuff. But tell him it's just a waste of time and energy. Tell him I worried about that for 25 years and it's a waste of time.
How many times, like on a scale of from 1 to the late Ed Snyder, the old owner of the Philadelphia Flyers, how often were you calling the league to complain about infractions? If Snyder's like the 10, where was MacLean?
Well, I feel terrible because, the head of the referees, he's a great, great young guy. And
Stephen Walker.
Stephen said to me one day, he said that he has a tape that he's kept on his phone, a voicemail that I left him 18 years ago. And he said every time he gets down, he plays it. It was a voicemail that I left him at midnight one night after a game. And he said to me that he's kept it. And every time he gets down in the dumps, he plays so he can laugh at me being such an idiot. And then what about this Mike Murphy guy? Mike Murphy guy? He speaks at the alumni event, the luncheon, that Scotty Morrison and all the boys go to,
Yeah.
So he goes up on stage, and in his speech, he tells them that I was a nut bar when I was a GM.
Oh,
can you believe that? So they sent me a note. Would I go in and speak at this? I said, yeah, I'm going in because I'm going after Murphy.
He's retired. He lives in California. I see him at St. Andrews College every now and then. He comes in to watch his grandkids. Give Murph a break.
I love Murph. I do. He's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, listen, Doug.
So listen. You got to compliment me on my set here.
Oh, because the
last time I watched your show, Berkey was in a bathroom doing his hit, and a guy came into the bathroom and had to use the bathroom.
He was in an office at the Mattamy Athletic Center, the former Maple Leaf Gardens, when someone came in and Berkey referred to him as some civilian. Like, Berkey, who's that? I don't know, some civilian. You've been around Berkey for some civilian just walks in here.
I thought he was in a bathroom doing the hit.
No, that's where he did his best trades, for crying out loud, not to do the hits. I do like the Venetian, and when I see the Venetian blinds, I always think about Bob McCowan on the original Sportsline show. This is back, this is decades ago when they had no budget. He would have on the Venetian blinds, on the one side was all the scores from the American League, MLB, and then he would flip the Venetian blinds and there'd be the scores from the National League. That's how low budget Sportsline was when Bob McCowan first started it.
Trust me, it's low budget around this household too. So
with two grown-up kids, I get it. Okay, so here's what I'm looking for today. So I text you today. I'm like, Doug, Stadium Series jerseys. You see the Cannon, Columbus. You've told me so many great stories over the years. Many of them I cannot repeat, but this one I can, and I want you to tell it. The story of the origins of the Cannon and how you would resist the Cannon nationwide. Give us the origin story.
there's one group that are totally responsible for the cannon being in the building. And, I know Hitchcock, I'm sure he's trying to take attention or take credit for it, and some of these guys, but, and Jeff Rimmer definitely be trying to take credit for it. You know that. By the way, before I get into it, I've got coffee tomorrow morning at 9:30 at Starbucks in Delray Beach with Jeff Rimmer, who's devastated that Sam Rosen's getting more accolades than he got when he retired. And I'm going to have coffee with Dale Talon, Jeff Rimmer, and Ron Hextall. So you talk about a dead GM. Talk about a dead GM society meeting. That's it right there.
So you hang on. You have to do what Ned Dowd did. So Ned Dowd played Ogie Oglethorpe in the movie Slapshot. His sister Nancy wrote the movie based on what Ned would do when he played minor hockey. You would know Ned, Johnstown. So he would bring tape recorders into the room and record the conversations, hand them over to Nancy, and that became all the dialogue for Slapshot. Yeah. So we need you to do a service for hockey and record the conversation tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll play
exactly. It it'd be a lot of whining about why aren't we working? Why aren't we working? Because we were no damn good. That's why we're not working. But anyway, so here's the story. And the only people that are responsible for this is the Jacket Backers, which was a self-proclaimed booster club of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I don't even know if they still exist, but I suspect they do. But I would continually, once a week or once every 2 weeks, please, we want a cannon, Civil War. We want a cannon. And so I pushed it off because I thought, oh my God, I got enough worries on my plate with the way the team's playing and what's going on to worry about a cannon. So finally it come down to the last week or 10 days I was in Columbus, and I sensed that I was getting fired. As a matter of fact, I had a pretty good idea I was getting fired.
Okay.
And I get the note from the Jacket Backers again, asking me for this. And I walked down the hallway and I said to Mark Gregory and whoever else was his boss at the time, we went through those president or VPs of business on a regular basis there. But anyway, I said, look, here's something. I want you guys to move ahead with the cannon. You're the marketing guy, move ahead with the cannon. And I thought that was one of the greatest moves other than the Nash trade. That would be my second best move with the Blue Jackets. So the cannon came, and then I go in there for the damn All-Star game.
Yeah.
When we went in there with Sportsnet, and the score was like 15-14, and all we heard was the cannon the entire day. I mean, it was unbelievable. But you know what? It's fun for them. Yeah. I think it's great. JD just sent me a note today. He said, because I told him I was going on the sheet to do this on the cannon. He said, you should be getting money from the Blue Jackets for that cannon. Because they got it on the jersey.
He writes the checks. He writes the checks.
Yeah, well, he's gone now. I said to JD, JD, I know money's real important to you. I'm fine. I've got my NHL pension. I've got my Social Security. I'm not worried about getting money from the Blue Jackets.
When do you look back, because I can't look at the can after hearing all your stories about the can. I can't see that either at Nationwide or in this case on the jersey and not think about you. When you look back, I mean, listen, history is history. When you look back on your time in Columbus, and we're all waiting for a still, and they're on a nice little run right now, and Zach Werenski looks fantastic, waiting for Columbus to finally arrive. Still, here we are. Yeah. What comes to your mind, when you think of the Columbus days, either players or certain games? And I know so much revolves around Rick Nash and that precedent-setting contract, but what comes to your mind?
First of all, what comes to my mind is they've had 5 rebuilds since I left. At least 5 rebuilds. So, but you know what? It's funny. I've got amazingly great memories. Number one, we loved living in Columbus. My family, my kids, both my kids, Clark and Mackenzie, got to graduate from high school in Columbus. We had a great life there. It was terrific, and we have nothing but fond memories of it as a family, which is really nice. And then the hockey part. Today I was walking on the beach and I get a text from Gilbert Brule.
Oh,
and
wow.
Gilbert, that was today. And Gilbert said, I just bought your book. That's what he said to me. And I said, Gilbert, I said, it definitely will help you sleep at night. And he said, why? Like thinking it was something to do with him. I said, because it's just kind of boring. That's why. So, and I'll never forget, every time I think of Gilbert Brulé, and I get lots of heat for that's the most heat you could ever get about a draft selection where I took Brulé at 6, and of course Kopitar went 11, and all these other geniuses, including one I'm having coffee with tomorrow, passed on Kopitar. But nobody ever mentions that, or nobody ever mentions Brian Murray passed on him, Doug Wilson passed on. They all passed on him, but I'm the one that takes all the. But I'll never forget the Knicks saying, "What do you think that taking Gilbert Brulé over Kopitar cost you? What do you think it cost you career-wise?" I said, "I don't know what it cost me career-wise, but I guarantee it cost me at least $30 million by taking Gilbert instead of Kopitar. Because if I would have taken Kopitar, I may still be a GM."
But here's the thing, and I've been consistent with this for the longest time. That anyone that watched Gilbert Brulé play, I mean, they were calling him Sidney Crosby of the West for a reason.
He was so good.
Gilbert Brulé was an incredible player. Like anyone that watched him looked at him and said, that guy's not just going to play in the NHL. He's going to be a superstar. And things happen along the way, but Brulé was amazing.
People used to tell me he might be Yzerman, he might be, but he was a more fit. Stevie Y was a special player, but Brulé was even a more physical guy. But I remember at the Moncton Memorial Cup, sitting in the stands and everybody coming watching him play for Vancouver, because we had sent him back to junior after before the 10-game arc. We sent him back to junior, and he was so good, and everybody coming up to me in the stand, "Oh man, you're so lucky. You're so lucky you got this kid." I feel bad for Gilbert. He was a great kid, and it was a tough road and a tough situation with a Columbus franchise, with a expansion franchise. But he's been a great kid, and we've kept in touch for all these years, which is really special.
What's he? I'm always curious what happens. Like, what's he doing now? What's Gilbert Brulé up to now?
He's running a hockey program in the BC area.
Oh, good for him.
A skills program. Yep. And I know he's got a beautiful place up in the mountains there that he uses as, he lives there at times and rents it. But I think he's really done well, And look, he had a pretty good career after, he played a couple hundred games in the NHL and then played a long time in Europe. So anyway, you know what? There's so many of those guys that you run across in your career that didn't become NHL stars, but just really, really good people.
I always thought Dan Fritchie was going to be that guy too. I thought Fritchie was going to be. I know he had shoulder problems. But okay, last question for you here.
I'll tell you this. I just was talking about Dan the other day.
Okay.
I hear his kid in Cleveland, and I got this from Clark, my son.
Does Clark represent him?
Not yet, but this kid is supposed to be unbelievable. Danny Fritchie's young boy. He's got 2 boys, and both of them have an opportunity to be absolute stars. So it'll be fun to watch,
Okay, so here, let me close on this one then. So I'm going to do a piece next week on my blog about NHL free agents and the different things that they're interested in when they choose a new hockey team. Like certainly, like money is number one. Like that's obvious. Yeah. But one of the things that's really important to older players that have families and kids that play hockey is, am I going to a market where my kids can play hockey with a good program? And you know where I'm going on this one. Yeah. Putting together, like when you were the GM and president of the Columbus Blue Jackets, putting together that youth hockey association. Like we don't really think about it, but I know that this was a big deal for like someone like Jonathan Marchessault. Like Marchessault was going to go to either Nashville or Montreal or Anaheim. And again, money's the big one, but part of the criteria is I'm going to go to a place where my kids can play in a good hockey program. How obvious was that to you when you first started that we need to have as far as like being a lure for older free agents that have kids that play? Like you look at that Blue Jackets, youth hockey association that you put together. Like that's a lure for guys.
Yeah, it was really amazing. We went there, and I remember getting a call when I finally got the job. I had called the people in the minor hockey because Clark was into it at the time, and I said, what's the minor hockey program? We have 700 kids playing minor hockey in the Columbus area. 2 or 3 programs, and there was a battle going on amongst them. Mm-hmm. Today, if I'm not mistaken, there's over 8,000 kids playing youth hockey in Columbus, Ohio. And
awesome.
and what we worked at was youth hockey. I remember I hired Ed Ginger to set up the Blue Jackets AAA program because Clark and his buddies were driving to Dayton to play AAA. Of course, I got ripped for just starting the Blue Jackets because of my own son, and he got to play in it one. He got to play 1 year in it.
What a hockey dad! What a hockey dad story.
So anyway. So that was fine. And Ed Ginger is still the president of the Blue Jackets AAA program, full-time job, and has done a spectacular job. And you see the Corrales and all the kids. Corrale was an 8-year-old when we started that program in Columbus, and Gordon Murphy's son, who plays for the Blackhawks. I mean, it's really been a great thing the way Columbus has become. We had over 100 men's league teams, and that we really worked hard to promote that. I used to bring them on road trips. Who was the MVP of the playoffs in the men's league. We really worked because I said to them at the time, if you get a men's league going, the men's league players will become fans and their families will become fans. But it was an amazing experience. I think back on it with fond memories. I really do. So there was a lot of, I had great people working with me, great people. And we also brought the USHL to Columbus too. I think in my last 3 years, we brought the USHL there. So we had a lot of fun.
Good times.
And now I'm golfing and playing pickleball.
I was going to say.
And walking the beach.
I know golf. I know you always like golf. When you texted me about pickleball today, I was a little bit surprised. But, you're still a competitive guy, and that's a fun sport. So I'll let you get back to the pickleball court, Doug. Thank you, sir.
Well, look, as I say to Kipper every Friday, I really, really appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate it.
I know. You love me. I'm your favorite. Thank you, Doug.
Good luck, bud. Good luck with the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, pal. You be good. Good catching up again. We'll talk soon. There he is, Doug MacLean, and he was playing pickleball earlier on today. He's, I understand he plays quite regularly. But it is an interesting point, too, about the Youth Hockey Association in Columbus, and mentioned the Corrales and Connor Murphy, et cetera. Like, for older players, and you know what? Max Pacioretty's another great example, too, because he's got at least one kid I know that's, like, really, really elite. And when players are making their decisions, free agents, like, where am I going to end up? One of the considerations is there a good youth/minor hockey organization for my kid or kids to play in? That's the realities of being a free agent in the NHL these days. We're going to stand by here for Jay Rosehill from Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga coming up in a couple of moments. Zach, my good man, anything stand out there from Doug MacLean and the Cannon story, or any of his other assorted tales? And how would you like to be sitting at the table next to Doug MacLean, Dale Talon, Ron Hextall, and Jeff Rimmer tomorrow?
Well, that would be quite the. That's when I think we had conversations about fly on the wall, where you'd like to be. Yeah. That's when I'd like to be a fly on the wall for. If we could get the secret tapes of that one, for sure, that would be interesting. We'll play an exclusive here on the sheet next week. But my favorite part was. It's time for me to give up on trying to get anything done with player safety. I'm hands off. If Doug MacLean couldn't do it for 20 years, then what the hell am I gonna do?
It's funny because when we get off the air, like I'm texting Walcom right away. I'm like, oh, I got to hear that rant. I got to hear that rant from Doug MacLean. We'll get let's see if we can get Doug to allow us to play it here on the air, because my favorite thing. God, there's so many favorite things when I used to work with Doug when we were together. One of my great sayings, and I still say it almost I'll probably do say it every single day. I'll be in a conversation with someone in the industry, and you're just like bullshitting and talking blah 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 whatever, and you come across like some story or rumor or whatever, and you'll pause, and then in Doug MacLean fashion, and I can't do a Doug MacLean impression, only he can talk like him, I'll always say, well, as Doug MacLean always says, I'm not saying it's the truth, I'm just saying what I heard. Not saying it's the truth, just saying what I heard. That is how I always think of Doug MacLean. And I'm telling you, dude, like some of those stories. And by the way, Jeremiah says we need an hour with Doug. Amen. In the chat. So McDoust, just let Doug rant for the next 30 minutes. I'll tell you, like honestly, like I really met a lot of people that I along the way that you work with. You wish you could work with again. Doug's right up around the top of the list. Because Doug always made it fun to go to work. Like, oh, great, I get to work with Doug. He'd be in a great mood or he'd be cranky. It didn't matter. Berkey's the same way, right? If they're in a good mood or they're cranky, it's always fun. Like, you're always going to laugh and there's always going to be a bunch of stories involved. That's why I always loved working with him.
That was fun.
Okay, Big Willie Sal's. Jeff scared of the Cannon. Yeah, maybe. I get that the fans really dig it. What do you think of the Cannon, Zach?
I think it's fine. It's kind of a fun tradition now that they've got it. It's also funny, like he brought up the All-Star game. That was something for me that I thought was hilarious when that was going on, hearing the cannon go off 800 times during the game. I'm like, wow, didn't really think about that one logistically, did we now?
Yeah, that was a little bit much. So we're standing by for Rosie, right?
We got him.
Oh, we got him. Okay, let's bring him on. Let's get Jay Rosehill on from Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga, the one and only Jay Rosehill. Tonight, the Toronto Maple Leafs face off against the New Jersey Devils, the return of Sheldon Keefe. Rosie, how are you today? I was told by someone at our company to ask you this question to kick things off.
Here we go.
Why didn't you play in the Western Hockey League? Why did you go the college route?
Good question. Yeah, I get that once in a while. I was kind of a late bloomer, Jeff.
Really?
I'd played forward and D up until midget AAA, so about when I was 16 years old, and started to get used to that position at 16. Then after my 17-year-old year, after that 16-year-old year, it's time to make a decision. And Seattle Thunderbirds and the Dub got my rights. And to be honest with you, I was just coming into my own. I was kind of a small town kid, mama's boy almost, and I didn't want to go down to the States and live in Seattle, and I was terrified of that. And I was just hitting my stride, and it was the option of going down there and playing in the Dub and seeing what happened there, or taking my time playing at home tier 2, going NCAA route, seeing how good I could make myself before I presented myself to pro hockey. And a couple of local kids around my area had gone to the Dub, big defenseman, played physical. And I remember sitting there the year I had to decide, and I was looking out the window, and this one individual who was from the area who had gone to the Dub and glitz and glamour and lights, and he was kind of working for the power line company. And this was just a few years later, and he had one wrist injury and didn't want to fight as much as they wanted him to fight. And that was it. And he was done. And I was terrified of becoming that. So I guess I just took the safe road if I had to sum it up.
So he became a cautionary tale for you then. He was one of the most influential people in hockey for you because of how he hung him up. Okay, so snapshot right now. Like tonight's a big game. Like the return of Sheldon Keefe, the New Jersey Devils. Like Simon Nemec should probably be playing on this blue line. There's no spot for him. Like, it's a wonderful blue line. They're getting great goaltending from Jacob Markstrom. Up front, they can score in bunches. They've got a Selke Trophy candidate in Nico Hischier. Like, when you look at this matchup tonight, I want to get to Tavares here in a couple of seconds, but when you look at this matchup tonight, like, where are the interesting lines for you between New Jersey and Toronto?
I like you say, they've all got their strong suits and their, I don't know what New Jersey's weak point would be. And I'm kind of the ilk where don't worry about who you're playing and don't focus on them too much. Like, are they going to change their game or their attitude towards it based on who their stud D-man is or who's putting up all their points? Like, you're aware of who you're playing for. But to me, I always went back to take care of our own business and everything else will take care of itself. So I don't really feel like the Leafs have been getting beat by teams or anything specific that has been taken advantage. It's all within themselves. And when they're playing their best, it's because of what they do. And when they're not playing their best, it's because of a lack of X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, they've beat this team before. They have a pretty good record. Over time, they've squeaked some things out against the Devils. And, you could throw in that extra little bit of Toronto feel where teams come into Toronto and play a little extra hard and give the best effort because it's kind of the hockey hub, but also the return of Sheldon Keefe as well. So there'll be money on the board and guys giving them clicks and whatnot. It'll be a reason to get up for. But at the end of the day, the Leafs need to take care of business the way they know how to, and everything else should fall in place.
How do you look at this team? I mean, last year with Sheldon Keefe and this year with Craig Berube, is there something, because, I think a lot of us look at coaches and, try to, figure out, that this coach is the right fit for this team. This coach wasn't the right fit for that team, et cetera. Like, and what the main differences are. And sometimes it just comes down to like, stereotypes, like Craig Berube, meat and potatoes kind of guy. Everything's got to be like, table hockey and straight lines and that's it, and et cetera. And 9 times out of 10, that's not even true. Like everybody evolves as the game evolves as well. But as you look at the Maple Leafs from last season to this season, from a coaching point of view, you're uniquely qualified. You've been there in the NHL. I haven't, obviously, or Alberga. Like, what do you notice right away with this team?
Yeah, you mentioned Craig Berube and some of the preconceived notions of him. Like, I was coached by him when I was in Philly, and he's not a hard ass, and he's not rough and gruff, and he's not really stern. I think just the way he played the game and just sometimes his facial expression kind of comes off that way. And when he tells you what his philosophy on hockey it does seem like meat and potatoes. But he's a pretty cordial guy. He's very fair. He loves to laugh and joke. And like, I've seen him laugh till he cries many times. He's not a real stern, rough and gruff guy, but his philosophy on hockey is very simple. Like, he lays it out there, like you say, north-south hockey, getting it deep and paying attention to the details and all those things that coaches say. But I really feel like under Sheldon Keefe, it was kind of you guys are so talented, go out there and make it happen. And I'm sorry, but you give Willie and Mitch Marner and these guys that kind of rope, they're probably going to abuse it a little bit, right? Just like most skill players would. I'm not even knocking them, but the drop passes and the no-lookers and the waist-high cross-ice sauces, it's just, coaches call that, low percentage plays. And when you look at years past, there was turnovers galore, there was odd man rushes like crazy, and it wasn't conducive to winning, especially in the playoffs, trying to win 6-5 every single night. This year, I feel like they've shored that up a little bit. They're paying attention to those details. They are getting it kind of deep. When there's a 50-50, medium to low percentage play, they'll make the safe one, and they live to fight another day. And I think when they've played that kind of patient hockey, less risky hockey, they've been rewarded for it a lot this season. But in the last couple of weeks, it's almost like they've started to stray from that, and their power play compounds that for sure. But it's almost like they're getting away from that Craig Berube philosophy that I think he tried to instill. And I'm kind of waiting for Chief to kind of bite down on the guys, which he's been hesitant to do.
So there's a lot there. I want to pull a couple of things out there. And as I'm hearing you talk about Nylander and Marner and go out there and the drop passes and look how skilled we are, that used to be Tampa. Like, Tampa was always the team that made that one extra pass just because they could. Like, you would see it like every single game. It's like, look how skilled we are, and we can do this, and look at this team you didn't see that was there. And what, like, this was, and would drive everybody, would drive John Cooper crazy, would drive the fans, it would drive everybody crazy. But somehow, John Cooper, you get buy-in from the players, obviously, they were able to calm that down. Right. And, Andrew Raycroft last week was on Morning Cup of Hockey, former NHL netminder, as we all know, an analyst for the Boston Bruins. And he was talking about not being able to simplify things like the power play when you have such highly skilled players out there because they're not wired that way. Like, highly skilled players aren't wired to simplify things. I know it, like, from a fan's point of view. Like, I watch it and we go like, oh, just like play a more simple game, it'll work. And we don't take into account the point that Raycroft was making, which is that's not how elite level players are wired. Like, they don't want to, and I would even make the argument too, they can't simplify things the way that we want them simplified. I guess what I'm getting at is it possible to be too skilled out there? Like, make no mistake about it. Like, the names you're firing out at us here, these are amongst the elite skilled players in the NHL. How hard is it to get them even just to turn it down a notch and simplify the game a little bit, knowing that at the end of it, they're not wired to play that way?
Yeah, and I know what you're saying, and highly skilled players oftentimes they want to be free, they want to be creative, they want to find room and create space and make plays. And you know what? If that one didn't work, that's okay. I think one out of 3 or 4 times I can make that play work. Where in a coach's mind, in a team's mind, that's not acceptable. You can't turn the puck over 50% of the time just because it works half the time. That's not good enough. And I've seen players ruin their careers over being unable to adapt. Some guys, minor league players with all the skill in the world who are high picks and have played World Juniors and go through the list, and they don't have a career in the NHL. And everyone goes, why was that? Well, a lot of times they're not willing to play the game, to simplify things, to play a system, to be more structured, to play the team game. And it comes back and it buries them. And some players are so unwilling to adapt that their careers suffer because of it. You look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, there's $50 million on that power play. And I do think part of the problem is they've always been so good and they've always been so skilled and they've always had success doing it their way, that it is difficult to get them just to fire pucks at the net and funnel pucks and go to the, and they're like, I'm better than that. I'm not some fourth line plug like me that needs to do that in order to justify a shift. They're much better than that. But I look at it and say, well, how stubborn are you going to be? How pig-headed are you going to be about the situation? Because what do you have to show for it? Your power play is like last in the league. Last year, it's like under 5% in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Are you really going to dig your heels in the sand and say, no, we're going to keep doing it our way? Or are you going to be willing to be a professional and say, this isn't working? We need to get back to basics. We need to get to the blank sheet and say, let's start from scratch here. What can we build on? And honestly, when a team's struggling like this and they're just spinning their wheels in the mud, oftentimes it is simplifying things, throwing pucks on the net, all the old cliches that they have to go back to in order to have success. And the longer they fight it, the more they're going to struggle. And I think that this PP, from what I've watched, they seem unwilling to change a whole lot. It just seems like the same thing over and over again, which is getting pretty frustrating for fans in that market.
Okay, closeout question for you. What does life without John Tavares look like for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Placed on IR, Fraser Minton is up. Listen, we all know that open ice isn't the best friend of John Tavares, but in front of the net it is. Play along the boards is his best friend. Like, there's still plenty, and we see the evidence. It's before us right now. But what does life without JT look like for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight?
Well, yet to be seen. Obviously, like, JT has had a season that I don't think people expected. The last couple of years of his contract, I think that people thought he was going to struggle and not really be worth the money, but he's having almost career numbers and they rely on him heavily. He's professional. He does have leadership qualities regardless of what's on his chest. And they're going to miss him. But just like when Austin Matthews was hurt, this Maple Leafs team, we call it on our show, they do leafy things, and that's unexplainable things. It's unexplainable that power play is as bad as it is. It's unexplainable what their record is without Austin Matthews. And I think that this could be an opportunity to have John Tavares go to the sidelines, want to heal him up as quick as possible, but it would be very Leaf-like for that to break the floodgates open. Get a Matthew Nyes to step up, get a Bobby McMahon to step up, get a, take your pick on some of the guys that are in that secondary role who could step up and try to fill John Tavares' shoes. I just wouldn't be surprised if something happened with the power play tonight, if something happened with those players that normally play with John tonight to break the floodgates open. I know that doesn't make sense and they're going to miss him, but this team does odd things. And like I said, they've had adversity before and somehow managed to dig in and find success. So, I mean, that's my rose-colored glasses thinking that they could make something of this. Like, sometimes it just takes an awkward thing or a shake-up in the lineup or something unexpected that gets things going and ignites a spark. Would it make sense to get going without John Tavares? No, of course not. But someone's going to have to step up and they're going to have to get a different mentality going than they've had in the last 3, 4, you could argue 5, 6, 7 games and try to get something done tonight against the Devils.
It's a long-standing tradition. The superstar goes out. I can recall, as you probably can as well, Matt Sundin leaves the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup, and all of a sudden it's everything you always wanted to know about Lonnie Bahanas, but we're afraid to ask. And we all got to know a lot about Lonnie Bahanas for the time that Matt Sundin was gone. You're the best. Jay, thanks as always for stopping by and taking time out of your schedule and probably cutting your workout early to come and do this. So much appreciated.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me. You and Zach, you have fun.
Thanks, bud. There he is, Jay Rosehill from Leafs Morning Take alongside Nick Alberga. Thanks for stopping by on the program today. It's a busy night around the NHL, and I want to before we get to the games, Zach, I want to get your thoughts on one thing, because Tristan Jarry cleared waivers today. Okay. So there's been a lot of chatter about, this is the audit of Kyle Dubas. This is like, the Tristan Jarry goes, that's how we should judge Kyle Dubas as he runs the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think I've been pretty consistent about one thing with Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins over the years. I'm going to continue it on, and until I'm proven, it's proven otherwise, I'm going to stick to my belief about Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The thing that I keep coming back to is the number 7. So the question I always ask people, and listen, Kyle Dubas is not the perfect general manager. The perfect general manager was Bill Torrey. No, I'm kidding. He had his flaws too. Everyone does. But when it comes to this Pittsburgh Penguins situation, I look at the number 7 because that's the length of term that Fenway Sports gave Kyle Dubas to run the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, what I ask people to do is ask yourself, why the number 7? Why specifically 7? Why not a 4-year deal, or maybe at most a 5? Why 7? Where does that come from with Fenway Sports and Kyle Dubas? And the thing that I keep coming back to is Kyle Dubas. The point has been made before. The most difficult job that any GM has is Kevin Cheveldayoff's for keeping that thing above water in Winnipeg, which is a market that has its own challenges. But as far as what this manager in Pittsburgh is being asked to do, I've maintained he is trying to thread the tiniest of needles here. When you look at the people that interviewed for that position initially, one of the expectations was they are going to respect the veterans on this team. They're going to respect Crosby. They're going to respect Letang. They're going to respect Malkin, who have zero desire for a rebuild, right? None whatsoever. They're going to do right by these players who have, helped raise the Pittsburgh Penguins brand and brought Stanley Cups to Pittsburgh, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's step 1 here. Anyone who interviewed for that job understood that, okay? These players are sacred here. They do not want to rebuild. So that's why I come back to the number 7. It's become pretty obvious that the plan for the Pittsburgh Penguins is, and I think it's too frivolous to say, I was talking to one manager today who was talking about spinning wheels. I think it's too frivolous to say that the Pittsburgh Penguins are looking to spin their wheels until these players retire or these players are done with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But it seems very much that the goal is for the Pittsburgh Penguins to try to be as competitive as they can without doing any long-term damage to the organization while they try to rebuild with prospects, draft picks, and young players. Zach, we've talked about this before. That sweet spot that Dubas is looking for is 22 to 25. Those types of players, second chance guys, that's what he's bringing into this organization. Now, his contract expires in 2030, which sort of coincides with this idea that if you're Fenway Sports, you have to have the hard look at yourself and say, we're not going to be an elite team in 2025, 2026, 2027. So let's just try to minimize the damage that we do to the team long term. That's what the play looks like for me for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as long as there isn't any long-term damage being done to this, whatever type of rebuild this is, while respecting those stars, that's Dubas's job. And that's being done in concert with Fenway Sports. Now, Fenway Sports may turn around tomorrow and say, you know what? New plan. We're doing the rebuild, and that's fine. But this very much feels to me like from day one, this has been the plan with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It is the toughest needle to thread. Go aim for 7th in the conference. Go aim for 8th in the conference, and don't harm the future. Like we all know what Jim Rutherford did with picks and prospects and all those types of things. They're chasing Stanley Cups and they got them. Can't do that anymore. That seems like the program to me. It's a tough one. If you're a manager, that's really hard. That's one of the toughest GM's jobs in the NHL. Agree, disagree?
Agree, 100%. I would like to be the first person to jump on him for what's gone on, just because I had issues and stuff, whatever, or not happy with
Toronto guy
down here in
didn't win the
Toronto.
Stanley Cup.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but point more so being that I can't in this situation. I can't. I mean, what is he going to do?
That's why they gave him 7.
You laid it out
again. Like that's why they gave him 7 years. This is going to take that long. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is.
I can't say it better than you. What are we going to do? How can we evaluate what he's got going on during this period of time while those guys are still there and those contracts are signed and they've still got them on the team? It's very limited options. And there's kind of a clear path, which you outlined a couple of weeks ago. And, I don't know if you're aware, there's like a Squidward meme where he's like pointing at something and everyone puts like a leaf or whatever, like every time. It's like every time now I see some of these players who fit that mold, I think about that meme and I think Penguin because it's like some of these guys come up, second chance players, younger guys, cheap contracts. Where are they going to end up? Probably Pittsburgh, where they're going to circle around on the guy. And Pittsburgh. It just makes sense, and I don't think he has any other option at this point.
It's tough.
Also, by the way, I laughed when you were talking about that because J-Rock in the chat said number 7 always comes up for Zach, too. It just has a 6 in front of it.
Ooh. Man,
I know. Working his way to get banned out of here.
Man,
come on.
Max Pacioretty, Robert Schfela, 67s, really on that team? Okay, anyway. Everything's got to turn into a Maple Leaf joke for Zach. Anyway, just want to get that one off my chest. Anyway, in the meantime, we got a busy night around the NHL as we wrap things up here real quickly. Games on the go around the NHL tonight. There are 13 of them. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. A couple of intriguing ones. Caps and Senators, as we all follow Alexander Ovechkin. That one should be a juicy one. Can the Blue Jackets continue to win? They're at home at Nationwide facing off against the San Jose Sharks. What else do we have that's interesting? Oilers and Avalanche. Oilers should look like a good one with that guy that should have been suspended or banned from the game maybe forever for a little chicken wing on Marcus Johansson. How to treat dandruff by decapitation. I'm Zach Phillips. It was a tiny little bump with the elbow to the chin, and for that he should never be allowed to put on skates anymore or tape up a hockey stick. Vancouver hosting the Los Angeles Kings, but I know you're eager as always because you'll be on to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New Jersey Devils. The floor is yours. As we started the show with you and the Cobra Chickens, we'll finish it with you, the Maple Leafs and the New Jersey Devils.
Look, here's the thing. I'm looking for a different effort from the Maple Leafs team. We said this is a stretch of bad games, and then they let it continue. They let it roll over. And
how about Dallas with the short bench and then all the kids beat the Maple Leafs? How about that one? Injury, short bench, no problem. Maverick Bork, Logan Stankoven, we got this. Leafs are going up 1-0. No problem. We got this.
Hey, I got Viz, by the way, of me and wait. One thing quickly. Cale Makar chasing 100 tonight. He's been chasing 100 for like a week, and if you're wondering, so have I, because I think I've bet Cale Makar anytime goal in every game since he's been chasing 100. So hopefully it happens tonight, because not just for him, for me, I'm also going to be looking for that one. That should be a real good game. Tough one though, back to back for the Edmonton Oilers. A tough one last night against the Minnesota Wild, but that's always a tough out. So very much looking forward to that. Let's close out with Viz of you playing against Pavel Barber and the Cobra Chickens. I want to see this graceful stride. There's like nothing going on in this clip, but you can see yellow socks. That's all I'll say. Yellow socks. This is the clip you posted. Someone sent it to me. Yeah, that's me.
What do we got?
Yellow
here?
Socks.
That's you in the yellow socks?
Right in front of him. Yellow socks. And then the play comes. There I am, and
fly
there
by.
I go.
What's with the flyby? I don't even like that's. I mean, first of all, he has a total beer league check. Just sort of wave at the puck, straight legs. Like, did you bend your knees the whole game at all? Did you break a sweat? Did you need the warm towels at all?
Oh yeah, I
Really?
was sweating. I was sweating.
Oh.
Let's. I was sweating. Come on, but I did the little whoop, and see ya.
That's awesome. Well, we got that one in there. And on that, we'll wrap. I'm off to go do the Jason Gregor show here in a couple of minutes. If you want to tune in there, you can hear more of my act in a couple of seconds. In the meantime, Big Willie Styles and Jeremiah and Randy and everybody in the chat, Kim, thanks for joining us today on the program.
Oh, look at who just joined in there.
Ryan De Silva. Oh my God. Ryan De Silva, who was it at my kid's skills session the other day, is supposed to be with Hillary. Yeah, where's RDS? Nowhere to be found. Day late, dollar short. Ryan De Silva, the star of the Armada, the star of the Stouffville Spirit. I once saw him. Did I tell you this story? Oh man, I can't remember where the team was. It might have been opening night too. Stouffville Spirit. I can't remember who they were playing, but I think he scored like either the opening goal of the season or like the second goal, something like that. And he did a Fortnite dance by the bench. And then like the rest, I was standing next to the GM Kenny Burroughs. I'm like, it's gonna be a long night for De Silva. He's like, I can't believe he just did that. He just did a Fortnite dance in front of the bench after scoring. I'm like, this is the OJ. Like kids get pissed fast. And sure enough, they chased them all over the ice. Visit that. Yeah, I know. I'd love to find a copy of that. Ask him about it. I'm sure he'll be happy to tell that story. Remember when Fortnite dances were a thing in hockey? Everybody was doing it. Were you one of them? Be honest. Did you ever do a Fortnite dance when you scored? No. Come on.
No. I wasn't playing hockey at that point either, so I didn't even have a chance to.
Were you out by then?
That was after. Yeah,
were you out by then?
I was at school. Yeah. I was at the Great Western University, Jeff.
Yeah, that's really bad. See, I went to Guelph, and so did Ryan, so we made the right decision. Oh, Ryan's saying partially true. No, my stories are not partially true. They're like, I was there. I saw it. I was at the game. I was sitting next to your general manager, Kenny Burroughs. What are you talking about, Ryan, in the chat? Okay, on that, we'll wrap up. Zach, great stuff. Glad you had a good time with Pavel Barber. Thanks to Doug MacLean for stopping by and telling stories about the Cannon. And man, would I love to be at that conversation. Dale Talon, Ron Hextall, Doug MacLean, and Jeff Rimmer tomorrow morning. That is quite the breakfast right there. And thanks to Jay Rosehill from Leafs Morning Take for stopping by as well. Tonight, one of 13 games on the go around the NHL. Maple Leafs facing off against the New Jersey Devils. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Please like and subscribe to our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. We thank you for the downloads. We thank you for your attention and making this program part of your life for an hour a day. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I listened to the Stephen Brunt podcast, the interview with Adam Copeland. Copeland talking about his mother. Good luck. Good luck getting through it. Now that will wrap. We're back tomorrow for more of The Sheet. 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. We'll talk to you tomorrow. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.